Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Investigators are learning more about the man who tried to assassinate former President Trump yesterday. Police arrested him shortly after a Secret Service agent spotted the muzzle of a rifle in some shrubs aimed at Trump.
It was the second assassination attempt on Trump in just 9 weeks. Dale Hurd brings us this look at what we know so far.
58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh, the alleged gunman who authorities said targeted former President Trump, was a former roofing contractor from Greensboro, North Carolina, but had moved to Hawaii. He is reported to have donated exclusively to Democratic candidates and causes as far back as 2019, but apparently was a Trump supporter in 2016 before turning against him. Routh posted on social media that Trump's campaign should be called Make Americans Slaves Again. Routh, who has no military experience, was interviewed in 2022 by Newsweek about his strong support for Ukraine in its war against Russia, a cause he was heavily involved with and concerned about.
This conflict is definitely black and white. This is about good versus evil.
Routh said he was willing to fight and die in Ukraine and told the New York Times in 2023 that he had traveled to Ukraine and wanted to recruit Afghan soldiers to fight there. Police said Routh had positioned himself behind a fence at Trump International Golf Club and had an AK-47 rifle with scope and body armor along with 2 backpacks and a GoPro camera. He was between 300 and 500 yards from the former president and appeared to be aiming a gun near him.
An agent that jumps one hole ahead of time to where the president was at. And he was able to spot this rifle barrel sticking out of the fence and immediately engage that individual, at which time the individual took off.
Routh fled in his car but was caught in a neighboring county. Former President Trump issued a statement saying, "My resolve is only stronger after another attempt on my life. I will never slow down. I will never give up." President Biden issued a statement saying there is no place for political violence or for any violence ever in our country, and promising to give the Secret Service every resource it needs to protect the former president. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, it's the rhetoric, I think, that's causing all of this. When you look at what is currently campaign rhetoric trying to drive votes, and you say a particular candidate is the greatest threat to democracy in the history of the American people, is it any wonder that you get this kind of reaction, that people are taking out these weapons and trying to shoot? The weaponization, both of the campaign rhetoric and the legal apparatus in our nation, it has absolutely staggered me as to what we've become. If you're listening to people saying, I'm going to leave the United States if so-and-so gets elected, you know, I've heard that for a while. I remember when Ronald Reagan got elected, that was the rhetoric, and people were saying, I'm going to go to New Zealand to raise sheep. No, you're not, and stop this kind of language, because this is the result. This is what we're seeing. I'm praying, can this election please happen quickly? Can we move on? But in that moving on, can we find a place where we can actually come together and once again be one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all? We've seen how the Constitution is very strong. We've seen it in Trump's first term in office. We've seen these things. Let's rely on that. Our republic will still stand. In other news, the Iranian-backed Houthis fired a long-range ballistic missile at Israel yesterday. Prime Minister Netanyahu says the terror group will pay a heavy price for the attack. Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Jerusalem.
The Houthis released footage of the launch they say covered more than 1,200 miles in just over 11 minutes. Parts of it caused minor damage in central Israel after being hit by one of Israel's Arrow interceptor missiles. The Houthis' military spokesman sent Israel a warning.
The Israeli enemy should expect more strikes and upcoming special operations as we approach the first anniversary of the blessed October 7th operation.
At Sunday's cabinet meeting, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the Houthis will pay for this attack. Netanyahu pointed out Israel struck a key Yemeni port in July after the Houthis launched a drone that killed 1 and wounded 10 in Tel Aviv. The Israeli Prime Minister is also warning Israeli forces may be about to turn their focus to Hezbollah, one of Iran's key proxies in its war against the Jewish state. The goal of Netanyahu's government is to return some 60,000 Israelis forced out of their homes in the north by nearly daily rocket attacks from Hezbollah.
The current situation will not continue. We will do whatever is necessary to return our residents securely to their homes.
Israeli warplanes are already striking Hezbollah targets in Lebanon to weaken the terror group before what could be a full-blown Israeli ground invasion of southern Lebanon. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, this is a significant escalation in military capability from the Houthis. This is a supersonic missile that traveled all the way in just 11 minutes. Now, it was hit by one of Israel's defensive missiles, but if you can see a whole barrage of this kind of technology aimed at Israel and being launched, it could overwhelm their defenses. We need to stand with Israel, but I do question, why are we allowing the Houthis to continue this? We've already heard from our Navy that this is the most engaged, this is the strongest battles they've seen since World War II. Now start thinking about the number of wars in between World War II and today. For the U.S. Navy to be saying that, why are we allowing the Houthis to exist at all? Why aren't we taking out their military capability? They're clearly a proxy for Iran, and they have fired on international shipping. They have fired on U.S. warships. That is an act of war, and why aren't we responding and responding in force?